2, 3. Blackologically testing. Blacology, a cultural science. This is a dissertation proposal at HU 219RE. Blacology, 1962 to 2008, a case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States. Table of content. A. Introduction and background, page 2. B. Statement of the problem, page 5. 1. Assumptions, page 12. 2. Dissertation hypothesis, page 13. 3. Significance of the study, page 15. 4. Limitation of the study, page 16. C. The review of relevant literature, page 17. D. Blacological research methodology, page 19. 1. Introduction, page 19. 2. Blacological research method, page 20. 3. Documented blacological research produced at HBCUs, page 20. Research questions, 4, page 22. 5. Response to Blacology, page 25. 6. Blacological database, page 29. E. Explanation of coined blacological words and definitions, page 30. F. The outline of proposed study, page 34. G. Bibliographies, page 35. Blacology, 1962, a case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States. A. Introduction and background. Blacology is an intellectual effort at a scientific understanding of the relationship between the black man and the construction about himself and the black world. This is a search for the truth and foundations of what one can call the black experience. Many scholars writing on this phenomenon have tried to develop analytical and methodological tools to differentiate their approaches, and those scholars we blackologically called a urological perspective. Dr. Ronald Walters, in his writings, clearly demonstrates the subject at hand. In his statement, saying, treating the substance of black life as something secondhand, which is and can be picked up at will, or as something we already know, that does not need systematic and constant elucidation, clarification, and development, is an insult to the quality and complexity of the black experience and perpetuates the racist attitudes which graduate schools have of the value of the study of black life in general. Writing in these perspectives, Dr. Suleiman Yang of Howard University, African Studies Department, captures the essence of what leads to the intellectual condition Blacology attempts to address. Over the last 500 years, the people of Africa and Europe have come to know one another through trade and commerce on the one hand, but most violently and brutally through slavery and colonialism on the other. In the course of this encounter, not only has lands been lost and occupied, but millions of black lives have perished, either at sea or through the Middle Passage. But the most significant loss to the children of Africa was their languages, their culture, and their historical memories, and their sense of personal and group worth. Growing out of these crises, stresses, tensions, and warfare is the presence of cultural domination. This is best exemplified by the hegemony of European thought in the black world. Aspects of this urological phenomenon are in the mode of living among black elites, their choice of creature comforts, and their fascination with the intellectual traditions of human societies. Not only do these men and women articulate themselves in European languages, but their logic and metaphysics are deeply rooted in European ways and manners. Through this elaboration and consuming system of mental and social domination, any attempt to liberate the black man and woman from the ill effects of slavery and colonialism must result in a Fanon or Cabral response. In the last 50 years of decolonization of European power and hegemony, we have seen various attempts to address the pressing challenge to black life and culture. The purpose of this dissertation, therefore, to accomplish a number of things in the field of black culture, particularly with respect to the evolution of the uncompromising struggle for justice, redemption, advancement of black people, and the redevelopment of black African culture. Banking heavily on the fact that an autonomous Blacological cultural commerce will not come into being without the successful intellectual liberation from the indoctrinated European concepts and values that are conscripted into the black world. This study sets out to identify and define the maneuvers in which Blacology could come into being. To this end, therefore, this dissertation seeks to argue for the need of a philosophical, methodological, commerce, and legal Blacological science as a way of knowing, evaluating, understanding, and dealing specifically with the evolution of black life here and now. Such an approach would be the perpetuation and utilization of the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their autonomous cultural knowledge. Indeed, it is also the establishment of this intellectual science called Blacology. Blacology is the scientific study of the evolution of Black African people and their culture. It is the perpetuation and utilization of the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present life experiences, and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. It is also the acclamation, affirmation, declaration, and proclamation of intellectual genius, creativity, and the Black story. Holistically, it is the manifestation of a Blacological, intellectual, cultural science education. This study will be based primarily on the concepts, ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of Black scholars, elders, ancestors, and contemporary grassroots people. It was conducted at Black institutions of higher learning. This dissertation is written to establish a field of study by which the knowledge of Black African culture and Blacological studies can be utilized to cultivate and educate Black people, also to obtain careers and degrees in this field. This is a national initiative under which the federal government, private business, and individual donors have already allocated substantial federal resources and investments into programs in previous years, i.e. Afrocentricity, African-centered education, African studies, Black history, Pan-African studies, Negro history, etc. The science of Blacology has the potential for dealing with issues of reparations, underestimated, devalued, marginalized, demotivated, low self-esteem, Black youth and adults who are starving from a lack of cultural affirmation and consciousness about Black African culture. Also, the lack of participation or success of many Black students and elders in elementary, junior high, high school, colleges, and universities in their autonomous cultural heritage, traditions, and knowledge as a field of study. This dissertation will elaborate on the limited access to the information and resources necessary for the development of intellectual science for Black African culture and its Black scholars. It will also deal with the issue of a lack of participation of Black people in such endeavors to develop a cultural science for discipline, morality, values, and traditions. The objective of this dissertation is to develop the cultural science of Blacology into an instrument by which Black people can utilize to instill values and provide traditions from the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of Black scholars, past and present. It is also to develop a field of study that will provide careers, degrees, and employment for those who are intellectuals of the Black and careers, but indeed to show the evolutional process and progress of Black African culture and Black scholars by establishing this cultural science Blacology in the curriculums of private, public, and charter schools. This will give credence to the existence of Black African culture in the present Eurological education system in the United States. Blacology will demonstrate equal capacity for black people and their culture to conceptualize, aggregate, and process their human knowledge. It will show their culture as creative, productive, and be scientifically researched. Definitely, this dissertation will contribute to the building of Blacology Research and Development Institute. In order to understand the manner in which Blacological thoughts and processes are developing in the historical black colleges and universities, where the evolution of an authentic, autonomous, Blacological intellectual thought has taken place, we need to examine and analyze critically the impact of this cultural science has on black students, population. The study will research libraries, archives, and study facilities at these HBCUs. It will benefit from student participation, structured interviews with faculty, and class participation. Will provide data for comparison purposes. The proposed study will yield the first detailed Blacological analysis of the content and impact of Blacological cultural science, Blacology, on black institutions of higher education. The research of Blacologists conducting this study will provide and distribute these findings through black media and other researchers. This dissertation will study the effect of producing Blacology or Blacologists in every public, private, charter schools and HBCUs in the Black African cultural market within the United States, with future expansions in Black Africa. Statement of the problem. In order for black scholars to address the problems of Blacology as a cultural science in the black culture, we must revisit the arguments made by Carter G. Woodson, Dr. John Henrik Clark, Ngugiwa Thiong'o, Nathan Hare, Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, and many local known figures. Growing out of the text and narratives of these persons, the thesis of this dissertation argues that the European capturing of the black African mind has resulted in a terrible political, environmental, and emotional situation that demands immediately that black Africans regain control of their intellectual world. Through such a process, black Africans at home on the continent and in the black diaspora would now be able to see the world through their own consciousness, and with the tools of Blacology that is analytical and critical to the mimic behavior dictated by those who control your language, your theories of life, and the concepts that serve as intellectual baskets, which in all things African or black are stored. Blacology, 1962 to 2008, a case study on the evolution of black African intellectual cultural science in the black diaspora within the United States. And I must reiterate the definition of Blacology so that we maintain our consciousness of the goal of this dissertation. Blacology is the scientific study of the evolution of Black African people and their culture. It is the perpetuation and utilization of the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present life experiences and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. It is also the acclamation, affirmation, declaration, and proclamation of intellectual genius, creativity, and the Black story. Holistically, it is the manifestation of a Blacological, intellectual, cultural science education. The problem here is that there is no authentic, autonomous, intellectual, cultural science owned by Black scholars for Black African culture that is developed, founded, operated, maintained, and manufactured for the perpetual evolution of Black African culture that is in the United States within the educational system, and this is by design, and it is a monopoly. This dissertation, entitled Blacology, 1968 to 2008, is a case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States. Proposes to acclaim and proclaim that Black African culture, its people, their intellectual genius, creativity, and Black story is the essence, evidence, and substance that makes for the evolution and manifestation of the cultural science of Blacology. This science will meet the need, supply, and demand for the intellectual acquisition, cultural knowledge, professional careers, and intellectual entrepreneurship in the Black cultural market within the United States. Ultimately, the Black world. Blacological research has revealed the statement of the problem appears to be what Dr. John Henrik Clarke has talked to us in his 1987 video, Part 1, Human and Spiritual Values in Africa Before European Contact. In the contrast of Blacology as the core of what this study, Dr. Clarke says, I will begin with the fact that we live in a conceived European intellectual universe. Anyone who tackles a subject of this nature goes against that fact. This is an ingrained fact, the fact of living in a European conceived universe. This conceived fact became confirmed in the 15th and 16th centuries. It deals with a principal decision the Europeans made during their 200-year dark ages, or turning point in their history, when they came out of the Middle Ages and made the decision on world dominance. Blackologically speaking, this is the beginning of the struggle for cultural intellectual equality for Black people. This is the beginning of the struggle of Black African people for freedom, justice, and equality, and also against cultural deprivation. In the past centuries, there was no field of intellectual science founded, owned, operated, and housed by Black scholars to manufacture, perpetuate, and maintain their autonomous, cultural knowledge until the founding, research, study, and development of Blacology. There is no entrepreneurship of intellectual studies or science that provides careers and professionalism in the Black African cultural market, that is their autonomous body of knowledge. Also, there is the steering of Black scholars into Eurological and Arabic studies, which is the exploitation of the intellectual genius and creativity for the benefit of these studies. There is a lack of access to information about the evolution of Black African intellectual genius and creativity. According to Dr. Ronald Walters, there was the rhetorical perpetration and training by Eurological scholars that ideals, philosophies, notions, concepts, and traditions of Black African culture are not substance for scientific thought. There was also the assumption that only Eurological or Arabic scholars are capable of developing interdisciplinary sciences or autonomous studies. There is the assumption that all Black people needed to know was what the European scholars said was good for them. There was the perpetration that Black people did not have any intelligence at all, nor was there any intelligence in Black culture. There was also the ideal that the presence of Eurological scholars made the Black scholars morally incapable of reaching and studying Black African culture autonomously. The acceptance of Blacology by the traditional Eurological studies and their practitioners was met with both disbelief and acceptance by the students and faculty at the HBCUs. For those who disbelieve, there came the threat of economic reprisal and the fear of traditional institutional white supremacy racism, both covert and overt. This threat was applied through the process of stigmatic injury. There was also the refusal to recognize the evolution of the Black mind as a factor in the growth and development of Black people. There is the inference of Black people as always under the control of the conceived, perpetrated Eurological universe. A Black scholar was not seen as an equal, only as a servile being and inferior. Before Negro History Week, there was no class or season to study, research, and elaborate on Black African culture by Black scholars. This made Black African culture only seasonal in its accommodation by Eurological studies. Black scholars were only vindicated if they were seen in the world as students or Eurological studies, history, or Arabic studies. Any ideals, talents, or gifts they had was taken by the Eurological scholars to make non-Black African people intellectually wealthy. As a matter of fact, the Black scholars was and is an intellectual captive. A Black scholar could study any field of study as long as it was Eurological or Arabic, i.e. Negro history, Black history, and Arabic studies. But they could not develop their own autonomous body of knowledge to make intellectual commerce for Black African culture. As a matter of fact, they could not even elaborate on such a thing. After 12 years of colonial cultural conditioning under the Eurological and Arabic studies, Black scholars did not have the intellectual opportunity to do so. With additional training of undergraduate and graduate studies in Eurological and Arabic studies, the notion of a Blacological intellectual cultural science was hidden from their conscience. Black scholars were preoccupied with the business of conducting Eurological and Arabic studies. For those who accepted Blacology, there was the gladness, happiness, and they showed appreciation for an ideal whose time has come. It was the manifestation of a prophecy long awaited to be filled. There were the shouts by the elders saying, "I knew it would come." There was the spiritualist saying, "God is always on time and is good all the time." You can take Black people out of Africa, but you cannot take Black African cultural autonomy out of Black people. You can hide, detain, disguise, or deter Black African culture, but you cannot eliminate Black African cultural autonomy from Black African people. The evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science has manifested itself in the way Black people walk, talk, sing, dance, and express themselves, and how they think. It is apparent in their hair, speech, and their color. There is a viable, distinctive, autonomous, intellectual cultural science that resides within Blacology and Black African people, and it is Blacology. It is a talent and a gift given to them by the Creator and utilized by their ancestors as their efforts to survive. Blackologically speaking, in the West, when Black scholars were desegregated and physical colonialism came to an end, they were so happy to be able to go to school, study any field, and they were in a hurry to do so because they thought that was being free. But they soon found out that was not freedom or intellectual freedom at all. Freedom is a holistic phenomenon. It is in your heart, your mind, and your soul. We were told by Eurological scholars that Black African culture did not exist. Black people were also told that Black African culture was not scientific. In these Eurological sciences, in addition to that, Black people were told they could not develop such a science. Black people were trained to believe they did not have the ability to do such a thing. There was no way there could be a science in Black people or their culture. Blacological research has revealed this is not so. Somewhere I read, in conducting this Blacological study, there is a theory in science that states in order for something to be science, it has to be true or a fact. It is a fact and true that there is Black African people. They do have a culture and an authentic, autonomous, body of knowledge. Black scholars have also a tradition of ideals, philosophies, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present, and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. This is the evidence of a Black African intellectual cultural science entitled Blacology. Ultimately and specifically, the purpose of this dissertation is to accomplish a number of things in the field of Black African culture, particularly with respect to the innovative, authentic, monolithic, intellectual, creative genius. The acronym I am Courage of Black African people, or Black knowledge. This dissertation proposes to examine Black African culture, its people, their intellectual genius and creativity as the elements and ingredients of the cultural science of Blacology for career acquisition and institution building. Since January 1962 to the year 2008 in the United States. It will specifically analyze the relationship between the evolution of Blacology and the assumption of Eurological and Arabic cultural supremacy. Blacologically speaking, the solution to this problem, according to Malcolm X, is how Black scholars see themselves, not how Eurological scholars and others see Black scholars, but how Black scholars see themselves. This study will scientifically analyze the relationship between the evolution of Blacology and the assumption of Eurological and Arabic cultural supremacy. This is a Blacological research that will explore and attempt to answer the many statements and questions that present themselves daily to Black people, such as the following. 1. The quest of Black scholars to provide the service for the need, supply, and demand of the Black market for autonomous intellectual studies in Black African culture within the United States and globally. 2. What is the difference between Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois' 20th century theory and Dr. A.M. Deluxe Sirleaf 21st century theory of Blacology? Dr. Du Bois said the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Dr. A.M. Deluxe Sirleaf theory is the Black race, the African continent, and the ultimate necessity for the development of Black cultural science, Blacology, the 21st century African system of thought. 3. Why is there only seasonal recognition and celebration of Black African culture by some Black scholars and Black people in the United States? 4. Are Black scholars intellectually accountable and morally capable of reaching up for the Black knowledge that forever confronts them? 5. Because of the monumental achievements of Black scholars of the past, does this make for today an environment by which the black scholars of the present would be able to do greater works and develop new Blacological, intellectual, cultural science, or should they be content with urological studies? 6. Should the contemporary black scholars of today be waiting in urological and Arabic studies until after the completion of their high school, bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees to begin the quest for intellectual entrepreneurship, giving all his or her labor, gifts, and talents to the already wealthy urological studies industry with no reciprocity? Or should black scholars press on with self-determination to go where no black scholar has gone before? 7. Can the black scholars of today answer a 30-year-old question by Dr. Ronald Walters, which states whether or not one believes in the possibility that there exists a body of knowledge about black life which can be disciplined and made useful in the survival and development of black people depends on many factors. Among them are 1, a determination that such knowledge can be disciplined. 2, a determination that in such a disciplined state, the knowledge, when applied to actual problems the community faces, will be useful in the solution. Besides, the ambivalence manifested by such social scientists, other cases and causes of dysfunction of white social science may be accounted for by 3 prime factors. 1, ideological base, ideological bias. 2, structural bias. And 3, methodological bias. Blackologically, as we have evolved intellectually, do we need urological studies to define who we are? 8, are black scholars forever under the scaffold, forever under the throne of urological scholars and their cultural dimensions as the captives and enslavement perpetrators of the intellectual realm of the black scholar's mind? Or are black scholars evolving into their own autonomous intellectual body of knowledge? Blacological research has revealed that in the United States and the world, black scholars and white scholars have been urologically conditioned to believe that black scholars are inferior and white scholars are superior. The manifestation of this conditioning is that intellectually black scholars are underestimated. As far as publishing, they are devalued, and creatively they are marginalized. In the practice of this urological conditioning, there are no autonomous blackological intellectual cultural sciences studies, nor universities that are owned, founded, operated, produced, and maintained by black scholars in the United States education system. 10. Who declared black people in the United States to be African American? Is this title or label the product of urological acclamation of black people, such as the term Negro, of which in the Civil Rights Movement, 1965, Floyd McKissick and Kwame Ture declared self-determination for all black people, and that black people would define who we are, and we would be black people for now, then, and forever. Should we tell urological Americans it's not what you call us, but what we answer to? And we only answer to that which black people has acclaimed, affirmed, declared, and proclaimed from the spirit of the uncompromising struggle of our Black African culture. 11. Should black people in the second century of the redevelopment era of Black African culture concentrate solely on issues specific to their local Black African culture, or should they broaden their perspectives for a global and changing Black African universe? If so, why or why not? 12. Now that Black African people are physically free, how then must they intellectually free their hearts, minds, and souls of colonialism? Can black people continue the practice and use of urological and Arabic religions to free black people holistically? 13. Intellectual reparations is a question of the day. The intellectual genius and captivity of black people has been exploited by urological studies since the days of Dr. Martin Delaney. What then is the recipe